There is a very specific, almost magical moment in competitive gaming where the rest of the physical world completely fades away. Your keyboard sounds quiet down, the clutter on your desk disappears from your awareness, and your crosshair seems to move entirely on its own. Your micro adjustments are instantaneous, your tracking is flawless, and it feels like you literally cannot miss a shot. Gamers usually call this being in the zone. In cognitive psychology, it has a beautiful name, the flow state. And far from being a random stroke of good luck, it is literally neurochemical blueprint that you can learn to trigger on command. Not just inside a gaming server, but in your real, everyday life. If you've ever wondered why you play like an absolute tier 1 professional on a Friday night, but find yourself completely hard stuck bronze and missing basic shots on a Saturday morning, I want you to take a deep breath. The answer isn't that you suddenly lost your mechanical skill overnight. You didn't become a bad player in the span of 12 hours. The real reason is that you simply lost access to your ideal neurochemical state. Today, we're going to deep dive into the fascinating neuroscience behind flow. We'll look at how modern algorithms are actively rewriting your brain's dopamine baseline to keep you distracted. And most importantly, we'll map out a step-by-step psychological protocol to help you reclaim your focus. Whether you're trying to master a complex in-game strategy, build an online project, or learn a difficult digital skill, it's time to stop waiting for motivation to hit you. Let's learn how to engineer it. Welcome to Flow Immersion. Let's look at the system together. To understand how we can step into this state at will, we have to look at what's actually happening inside your skull when you're in the zone. Most people assume that peak mental performance requires your brain to work twice as hard. We imagine our neurons firing wildly, lighting up like a Christmas tree as we push our minds to the limit. But neuroscientists have discovered that the exact opposite is true. Deep, effortless focus isn't caused by hyperactivity. It's driven by a fascinating neurological downshifting process called transient hypofrontality. Let's break that jargon down into plain English because it's empowering once you understand it. Transient means temporary. Hypo means underactive or slowed down, and frontality refers to your prefrontal cortex. Your prefrontal cortex is the executive seat of your brain. It's an amazing tool that handles your logical planning, your sense of time, your conscious identity, and your inner monologue. But it's also the direct home of your inner critic, your self-doubt, and your chronic overthinking. Think about a high-stakes late-round clutch situation. If your prefrontal cortex is hyperactive, your mind starts racing with unhelpful chatter. What if I miss this shot? What are my dead teammates saying about me right now? Should I have used my utility earlier? The moment those thoughts spark, your nervous system tenses up, your muscle memory glitches, and you lose a duel you should have won easily. But when you hit a flow state, your brain does something beautiful. It temporarily shuts down the prefrontal cortex. It flips the switch to off. Suddenly, your loud inner critic goes completely silent. Your perception of time warps, where minutes feel like seconds, or seconds stretch out so clearly that you can read the enemy's movement like slow motion. Because the overthinking part of your brain is resting, your system stops second-guessing its actions and begins executing purely on raw muscle memory, deep intuition, and lightning-fast pattern recognition. You aren't manually calculating how to play the meta anymore. In that moment, your execution is the meta. Now, knowing how great flow feels, the golden question is, why is it so hard to get into it when we actually want to? The biggest mistake we make when we sit down to do hard things, whether it's practicing our aim, studying a complex topic, or working on a personal digital business, is assuming that focus should feel amazing right from the very first second. We expect to sit down and instantly feel inspired. And when it feels uncomfortable instead, we assume that something is wrong with us. But pioneering research from Harvard and the Flow Research Collective has revealed that flow is not an instantaneous on-off switch. It is a mandatory architectural cycle with 4 distinct biophases. If you try to skip the uncomfortable parts, your brain will never let you reach the zone. Phase 1. Struggle. The first phase of flow is struggle. This is the initial friction phase, and frankly, it feels terrible. When you first sit down to do something that requires deep mental effort, your brain doesn't instantly give you dopamine. Instead, it floods your system with cortisol and norepinephrine, the chemical markers of stress and anxiety. You'll feel restless, slightly frustrated, bored, and intensely tempted to look away. This is the exact filter where 99% of people give up. They experience that natural friction, tell themselves, I guess I'm not motivated today, and open up Instagram for a quick hit of relief. But biologically, that friction is a healthy sign. It is your brain manually loading the data, scanning the parameters, and warming up the neural pathways it needs to execute that task. The struggle isn't a sign that you should quit. It's just a tax you pay to enter the zone. Phase 2, release. If you can sit with that discomfort for just a little while, you transition into phase 2, release. This is where you intentionally stop overanalyzing the friction. In a game, it's that long, deliberate exhale you take during the pre-round bye phase. In your work life, it's that moment you stop demanding perfection from yourself and just accept the task at hand. This mental release triggers a sudden burst of nitric oxide in your brain, which effectively flushes those stress hormones out of your system and opens up your blood vessels. Phase 3, flow. This opens the door directly to phase 3, flow itself. Your brain is now swimming in a highly potent, deeply pleasurable cocktail of 5 massive neurochemicals: dopamine, endorphins, serotonin, anandamine, and norepinephrine. This specific biological mix creates an unparalleled sense of clarity, high-speed processing, and completely effortless execution. You are fully locked in. Phase 4, recovery. But we have to be gentle with our biology because flow is an intensive, expensive state for your body to maintain. It burns through an immense amount of glucose and local energy. After a brilliant deep work block or intense, highly focused match, your neurochemical levels will naturally drop into a temporary low. You'll feel tired, drained, and maybe even mentally blank. If you don't actively protect this recovery phase, if you try to force yourself to grind through it or instantly bomb your brain with cheap digital notifications, your system can't replenish its stores, eventually leading you straight down the road to chronic burnout. To play at your best, you have to respect the rest. So, knowing the cycle, how do we practically set up our environment to encourage our brain to make this shift? We do it by intentionally leaning on what psychologists call flow triggers. These are environmental and psychological conditions that force your brain into the present moment. Trigger 1, the challenge to skill ratio. The first and arguably most critical trigger is balancing your challenge to skill ratio. Humans' focus exists on a razor-thin biological margin. If a task is way too easy for you, your brain gets bored, your mind drifts, and you lose focus. On the flip side, if a task is vastly superior to your current skill level, your nervous system interprets it as a threat, triggering intense anxiety, frustration, and tilt. Data shows that the sweet spot for flow lives right about 4% above your current capability. You need to choose tasks or opponents that stretches your abilities just enough to demand your absolute undivided attention, but not so much that your subconscious mind panics and pulls the brake. Trigger 2, clear goals and immediate feedback. The second trigger is having clear goals and immediate feedback. This is a massive reason why competitive video games are so deeply immersive and addictive. The objective is always unmistakable. Win the round, plant the spike, hold the angles. And the feedback loop is instantaneous. You either hit the clean headshot or you make a mistake and end up viewing a spectator cam. Your brain always knows exactly where it stands. But when we sit down to work on our real-life goals, our objectives are usually incredibly vague. We say things to ourselves like, I'm going to work on my online shop today, or I'm going to study tonight. But those goals don't have clear boundaries. Your brain has no idea what to prioritize, so it wanders off to find something simpler. To trigger flow, you must break your work down into hyper-specific micro-objectives. Don't just work on your project. Instead, give your brain a definitive target. I'm going to spend the next block drafting exactly 3 pages of this text template. Or I'm going to configure this one single software animation. Give your mind a clear finish line so it knows exactly how to win. Trigger 3, the elimination of distractions. The third and final trigger is the absolute non-negotiable elimination of distractions. We live in an era where technology is specifically designed to fragment our attention spans for profit. Every single time you're working and your phone screen lights up, or a casual Discord notification pops up on your second monitor, your brain is violently pulled away from its deep processing network. Cognitive studies show that it takes an average of 23 minutes of continuous effort to recover your deep focus after a single minor distraction. Think about the math on that. If you are checking your phone or glancing at a text message once every 10 or 15 minutes, you're biologically guaranteeing that your brain will never hit a flow state. You are keeping yourself trapped in the shallow, frustrating struggle phase indefinitely. So to get the premium rewards of deep focus, you have to protect your attention like it's gold. To help you bridge all of this beautiful science into your actual daily routine, let's establish 2 practical operational protocols that you can try this week, depending on where your attention span currently is. Protocol 1, the 90-minute Ultradian wave. If you feel ready to build deep, sustained momentum, you can align your work with your body's natural internal clocks, known as Ultradian waves. Our energy naturally moves in biological waves throughout the day, roughly 90 minutes of high-quality cognitive power, followed by a 20-minute trough where our brain needs to rest. When you have a major project to tackle, commit to a single non-negotiable 90-minute block. Put your phone entirely out of sight, close every extra tab on your browser, and set a timer. Now, remember the flow cycle. For the first 15 to 20 minutes, your brain will fight you. It will make you feel restless. It will tell you that you're tired. It will beg you for a quick dopamine hit. Expect that and embrace it. That is just the struggle phase. If you can kindly and firmly push past that initial 20-minute wall, your brain will stop resisting, clear out the friction, and drop you straight into a deep flow state for the remainder of the block. Once the 90 minutes are up, step away completely for 20 minutes to let your system naturally reset. Protocol 2, the 20-minute cognitive buy-in. But look, if your focus feels completely compromised right now because of the modern digital noise, 90 minutes may sound completely impossible, and that is totally okay. Be kind to yourself and use the second protocol instead, the 20-minute cognitive buy-in. In tactical shooters, you would never dream of jumping straight into a high-stakes, successful ranked match cold. Or maybe you do, who knows. You spend 10 to 15 minutes in a deathmatch or firing range just to warm up your muscles and calibrate your eyes. Your brain's focus mechanism works the exact same way. Set a timer for just 20 minutes. Your only rule for those 20 minutes is that you have to look at one single task. You don't even have to do a perfect job. You don't have to write a masterpiece or build something beautiful. You just have to show up and sit with it. What you'll find is that by the time the 20-minute timer goes off, the heavy mental friction has naturally dissolved. Your brain has bought into the task. The neurochemicals have started to shift, and you will almost always find that you'll naturally want to keep going. You didn't need to wait for a massive burst of inspiration. You just needed to give your mind a proper warm-up phase. At the end of the day, true mental fortitude isn't about being perfect, and it isn't about forcing yourself through agonizing willpower to grind until you break. Motivation is just a fleeting feeling, but flow is an engineered state of biology that you can learn to welcome in. By gently setting up your workspace, respecting the natural friction of the struggle phase, and protecting your attention, you can allow your mind to do what it naturally loves to do. Execute beautifully. I would love to hear from you in the comments below. What is the single biggest distraction that completely tilts your focus or pulls you out of the zone during a deep session? Let's talk about it and build some strategies together. If you want to keep exploring on how to work with your brain's natural chemistry to support your focus, please hit that subscribe button. Take care of your mind, protect your energy, and I'll see you in the next video.